What new head coaching change is going to change things for 2025 in fantasy? How do we feel about how the first few rounds of the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament are shaking out? And what do you need to do to be a better dynasty owner this season? Plus, we have Bill Hollywood, the five-time FFPC Main Event League champion, joining us on the show tonight. It's going to be a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a great show for you. We've got Bill Hollywood and Ferrell Elliott here. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob, and greetings to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. I want to thank Bryce, my best friend, and our audio engineer and our producer, our mutual friend Rob, right at the top of the show. We have a baller show for you tonight here on January 24th, 2025. A lot of stuff going on with the FFPC, and I want to tell you all about it right away tonight. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so at HSFF at Eric Balkman is where I'm at. And, of course, check out the KFFSC at kffsc.com and be a player in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship for 2025 and beyond. I'm already signed up for 2 drafts. Got like 5 dynasty teams there ready to re-up. So it's going to be a fun year for me in Kentucky, and it could be one for you as well. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/hsffhour. If you have any questions, email them in to highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll try to get to all the emails, all the X posts, and your Facebook questions, as well as the chat room questions tonight in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the program. Check out the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournaments and Superflex Best Ball Tournaments right now at myffpc.com. The Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament is a $200 entry fee. Best ball, obviously, so set it and forget it. $40,000 grand prize. You can also enter the Superflex Best Ball Tournament for just $35 and win up to $10,000 for the grand prize there. These tournaments started on Sunday. They're going to run all the way through April 24th, which is the first day of the NFL draft, and then they'll be cut off for the season. Drafts are available right now, 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 4-hour clocks. 6-hour clocks. So check that out at myffpc.com. And while you're there, check out the Dynasty Orphans we have posted. The fees there range anywhere from $77 all the way up to $5,000. And many of those entry fees have already been discounted for 2025 as well. So you can pick up a team, manage it to glory in 2025. 1,800 plus leagues in FFPC Dynasty history going over the last 15 years, and exactly 0 of them have ever folded. So once you are in, you don't have to worry about the league folding or anything like that. It's just pure Dynasty fun, 365 days a year. That's over at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, subscribe to the channel, comment on it, and, of course, get notified each and every time we go live by clicking on that notification bell as well. Once again, this is the HSFF Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm Eric Balkman. Let's bring in the definitive commissioner of fantasy football and the definitive co-host of this program at jferrellelliott on the X. It is Ferrell Elliott. Commissioner, good evening. How are you?
How you doing, my friend? I have been defined. I'm definitive. It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's no question.
Oh, man. I tell you, we need summer and spring to get here, Balky. I need a little sun.
You know what's funny is I went out we had schools were closed here in Northeast Wisconsin. I want to say, I think it was Tuesday this week, and really, really cold temperatures. I mean, wind chill of like 30 below or whatever. And that was not going to disrupt my daily walk. So I was out on a walk. I was dressed in, I think 4 layers, just to make sure I still got my exercise in. and Dizzle calls me, Dave Gerzak, co-founder of the FFPC, and we're talking shop, and he said, "Where are you right now?" I said, "I'm on a walk," and he said, "Outside?" I said,
"I dialed 911."
I said, "Yes," and he said, "You are insane. I will come pick you up." I'm like, "No, I'm good. I got 4 layers on. I'm nice and toasty, warm. I'm fine." Got back, and I will tell you this: even with 4 layers, and I was out for about 45 minutes or so. Took me about 3 hours to warm back up when I got home. And I stripped down to just a pair of pants and a shirt. And I'm like, you know what? I'm still kind of cold, but it's all good. It's actually been somewhat warm here in Northeast Wisconsin. It was a balmy 8 out today. And so we're living life the way it's meant to be lived, as well as Oinker. I should put Oinker on tonight, who is hanging out with us for the show. It is not often, Ferrell, that we get breaking news to start off the show, but about 15 minutes ago, we had a new head coach hired in the NFL, and his name is Brian Schottenheimer, NFL royalty. Adam Schefter tweeting this out or posting this on X, about 15, 20 minutes ago, that the Cowboys have now hired their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, as their new head coach. For the last 2 years, he's been the OC in Dallas, and obviously Jerry Jones has trusted him. Schottenheimer was hired as a coaching analyst in 2022, while Mike McCarthy was the head coach there, OC in the 2023 season, and then OC this past year as well. Even though Jerry Jones was not happy enough with the current regime or the current coaching to fire Mike McCarthy, he was not so upset that he wanted to get rid of Schottenheimer, because Schottenheimer gets promoted. He's been, and I believe Jerry Jones, the quote was, "Brian Schottenheimer is known as a career assistant. He ain't Brian no more. He is now known as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys," end quote. Gotta love Jerry Jones. Ferrell, my immediate reaction to this is they go from Mike McCarthy to Brian Schottenheimer. Mm-hmm. Is this did they improve? Did they get better at the head coaching spot? Is this better for the Cowboys? And quite frankly, the most important thing, is this better for fantasy, for CeeDee Lamb, for Dak Prescott, for these guys, whoever's coming back, Jake Ferguson next year as well? Is this better? Because it feels kind of like Jones thought he could do better than McCarthy and then failed to do so, and then this feels like a settle. He is settling for Brian Schottenheimer. Does it seem like that to you?
Jerry's a family man. You expect him to keep things in the family. That family extends to his football team. So, yes, it's a good fit. Second-generation coaches are not only very popular right now in the NFL, Balky, they're very successful. And you won't miss a beat. You've got a veteran team. You've got good receivers. The situation at running back is working itself out. We've got a draft coming up. And that's what's not changed, is the scouting and the drafting. The front office of this team. I see nothing wrong with this. Matter of fact, it's an easy hire for them because they don't have to proverbially start over. They just have to pick up and adjust. And I think that's what anyone would say about the Cowboys. They need to make an adjustment. So I like the choice. There's more interesting choices. There's more. You expect Dallas to make a big splash, but in a way. When you see the hire of this of Brian Schottenheimer, you expected that this day would come. It's come a little sooner than all of us expected. It'll be fine for the fantasy football players that you like to put on your team from the Dallas Cowboys, especially the tight end, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing we look at is CeeDee Lamb is obviously going to be Lamb. Prescott's going to do Prescott things. We don't know who the running back is going to be. Obviously, dynasty players, myself included, very interested to see how Dallas attacks the running back position in the draft. And then, the wide receivers that they have there in Jalen Tolbert. I mean, what's he going to do next year under Schottenheimer? This is a guy who's an offensive-minded head coach or an offensive-minded coach now takes the reins. I don't know if he's going to be calling plays. I would assume he would be, but I don't know. And we'll see what he does both at offensive and defensive coordinator. Rubio posting here that Matt Eberflus may be potentially a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys here going forward. Speaking of defensive coordinators, we don't need to dwell on this, but this also came out just minutes ago. Officially, Tom Pelissero posting that the 49ers have now hired Robert Saleh or rehired Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator. So that could be good for the Niners defense next year.
Captain Obvious wants to say that he never should have left. But he's when he did leave, he was recognized as one of the greatest young minds in defensive football, and he's going back to a team. Actually, the group that he assembled around him, beginning with our good friend Johnny Holland as his linebacker coach, they're largely still there, and so good for him. He's probably one of the happiest men in football here tonight in January.
I think this is great for Saleh. Number one, I thought he got a raw deal for the Jets, big time. Jets. And there was talk that he would never get another head coaching job. I think he's going to get another head coaching job.
Very well.
And not only that, this puts him in a great position to have that head coaching gig come his way sooner rather than later, that's
how we like things, sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later. Yeah. Let's get into the news out of Houston. This came out earlier today. Ian Rappaport has reported that the Texans quarterback coach, Gerard Johnson, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, the top internal candidate for the offensive coordinator vacancy, and say, what? I thought they had Bobby Slowick. Well, Balky, I thought they had Bobby Slowick, Balky. They did, but they don't have him anymore. A guy who was maybe going to be a head coach in last year's coaching cycle decides to stick around in Houston, and now he's out of a job because D'Amico Ryans wanted somebody else there. Cole Popovich could be the top candidate to be the new offensive line coach. Johnson received a lot of interviews last season for OC spots after CJ Stroud obviously blew up, and then the regression cost Slowick his job. Could Johnson be the OC? I don't know. We'll see. But the thing is here, Ferrell, are we overrating? I shouldn't say that. Are we overrating the impact? I gotta make sure I'm phrasing this correctly. Are we overrating the impact that Slowick had on this offense? Number one, when we probably assumed there was going to be some regression because Stroud played out of his mind the majority of the season last year. Number two, significant injuries to both Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell this season. Nico Collins also missed some time too. And then where's the credit for Joe Mixon, who had a really good season this year, given his age? I think that was impressive. I'm a little bit surprised that Houston did this, but now we have to roll with the punches here. How concerned are we? How big of a deal is this new offensive coordinator going to make in Houston as we are drafting Texans right now in the FFPC and the KFFSC?
I think it's more of a personality issue than a performance issue. This something wasn't right in that room, and I think probably they feel that they have someone in-house that can do more with the quarterback, but it still comes down to let's do a small shakeup while we keep our group intact. And this Gerard has been a well-respected quarterback talent around the league. That's what kept him in the league. He's an Aggie, so he's down there. He's loved in Texas. He has stints with Cowboys, Pittsburgh, a couple of other teams, maybe the 49ers. Wherever he's gone, he's picked up benefits of that. He's a young guy, 36, maybe 37 years old. I've liked him since the day I met him. He's a tall guy. He's 6'5", 6'6".
Wow,
So, yeah,
really?
He's a big cat. And so, he always has some good movements. He always had good footwork as a quarterback. I was surprised he did not have a bigger career as a player. But sometimes these guys that become coaches while they still have the helmet on, that's the career they're looking at, and that's what he is. So he'll be a nice addition. I imagine that players really like and respect him. It's a good group of coaches. You move on with your Texans. Don't forget that they won a home playoff game that they, at least the boys in the desert, didn't think they were entitled to win. They played very well and very aggressively. I like this team. I like them going forward. The quarterback will get it back together. Sophomore struggles is sometimes what happens.
And that's what happened this year. And I think that this is what we can exploit as far as fantasy goes, Ferrell. I've been doing it for years, where you draft these proven players coming off a down year, and they inevitably bounce back. I shouldn't say inevitably. Sometimes they don't bounce back, but a lot of times they do. And then sometimes when we draft players, and this is the question that will be reverberating throughout tonight's program, is when we look at some of the ADPs, for the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament, it's like, okay, are we drafting these guys based on the ceiling of what we saw last year, or is this truly how good they are? And sometimes we get caught with our pants down drafting a guy at his ceiling the following year, and then he has an average year, but he's a bust because we unfairly put his ADP too high. And that's something that we got to be cautious with.
Balky, you must keep your pants on, and you do not have to be cautious with Houston Texans.
Yeah, and I won't be. Okay, let's do this, Ferrell. We got some Raiders news.
So we love Raiders news.
I'm going to reach behind here.
You're gonna put the chain on?
My hook here. I'm gonna put the chain on. Got the Raiders chain. Thanks to John Terry, JTAJ.
That complements your personality very well.
The chain or the fact that it's a Raiders logo?
All of it together.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You should actually wear an eye patch more often.
Maybe I'll do that for a show one night. Wear an eye patch. I'll tell you what. When the Raiders win the Super Bowl, I will do the next HSFF full on eye patch.
Yeah, we've moved into the world of carrot top, Balky. We're now using props to try to make this show
exactly.
fantastic.
Yes. The first piece of Raiders news, Ferrell. This is how it ties into me, and I can't remember if I told you this. The Raiders hired a new GM this week. Mm-hmm. His name is John Spytek. John Spytek was instrumental. He was a former college teammate of Tom Brady at the University of Michigan, and he was instrumental in bringing Brady to the Buccaneers, where he was the assistant GM the last few years. Been a high-ranking player in that front office for several years, and now he gets to run his own team in Las Vegas. Perhaps the one shining moment of his career was once sharing a football field with a certain HSFF host, Eric Balkman, in high school. When he played for Waukesha Catholic Memorial. He was a sophomore. I was a junior. We lost that game 48-3. They may have gone on to win the state championship that year. He was a wide receiver and defensive end, a 3-year starter for Catholic Memorial. And that was the only varsity game I threw a pass in, where I got to play. I finally got to play quarterback, was against John Spytek. So Spytek moves on to the Raiders, and he is running things there. One of his first orders of business to hire a head coach, and he does that with Pete Carroll. This, according to Adam Schefter. Pete Carroll is the third head coach for the Raiders since 2022. Now, Schefter's reporting that it's going to be a 3-year deal for 73-year-old Pete Carroll that includes a 4th-year team option. He was with the Seahawks last year, not as a head coach, but as an advisor, and now he's going to try to turn around a Raiders franchise that has garnered 2 seasons of double-digit wins in the last 2+ decades, only made the playoffs in 2 of those years as well. The other unfortunate thing for Carroll, the AFC West, probably going to be the best division in football next year. Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers, Sean Payton with the Broncos, and, of course, Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 of the 4 teams, double-digit wins this year. They made the postseason. Raiders 4-13. The Las Vegas will be drafting 6 in the 2025 draft. They need a quarterback, whether they're going to get a quarterback in the draft, whether they're going to trade for one, whether they go to free agency. Russell Wilson's out there. I'm just saying.
Please,
that's another option for them as well. They ranked 29th in scoring last season. They allowed the 6th most points. This is not a 1-year turnaround, Ferrell, but I got to tell you, with Carroll in charge in Las Vegas, I'm starting to like Jacoby Myers more. I don't know if I can like Brock Bowers anymore. I think this is a great hire for the Raiders, and they're up against it in a tough division, but this is a step in the right direction.
All those issues at quarterback that the Raiders had this past year, those 2 players you mentioned still were fantasy producers. And yes, it's hard to imagine Bowers doing better. But you've got a guy here that 73 years young, perhaps. He has not lost touch with the league. I thought that when he left the sidelines in Seattle that he was rushed out, because I thought that his final year was a difficult year, but a good year in developing players. That's what he's always been able to do, develop players. I'm excited about seeing what can happen with individual players that I've been rooting for a long time with the Raiders. And what this report about it being so dismal, I saw 3 Raiders games this year. I saw them beat the Browns. I saw them in contention in their building with the visiting Kansas City Chiefs. And then the last game of the year was a bit of a sleeper against the Chargers. But my point is that this is a weekly business. And if you have players prepared to play, your team can be much more competitive. This is a coach who has his players prepared to play. And if he started with a quarterback, the Raiders did. Antonio Pierce started with a quarterback, and they were on their fourth-string quarterback at sometimes during the year. You take any team in the NFL that's on the fourth-string quarterback, they're going to start largely talking about next year. It's a very thin line between the elite teams of this league and everyone else. And so this is the kind of man that can point you in the right direction or get you there himself. I like what's happening there. It's a difficult march to get to the lead, but I was surprised by some of the commentary I've seen of, over the hill, out of touch. That's not the situation for this man.
Over the hill, sure, but by age, out of touch. I never viewed Pete Carroll as an out of touch coach.
Yeah,
really. No matter where he's USC, even in New York, quite frankly, I never viewed him as
we
like.
We got guys in their 40s that look lost on the sidelines.
Right. Yes.
Not Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
Just pop in another stick of gum and keep chewing.
That's what I think it is. It's the gum chopping. It keeps the mind sharp,
Yeah.
We have Bill Hollywood in the green room right now. Yes, yeah. Bill.
Whose idea was that? Goodness gracious.
God bless Ferrell Elliott. That's the man, the myth, the legend.
You got to love Bill Hollywood.
And we do love him. We do love him. We're going to bring him on in just 1 minute. The last thing I want to get to before Bill comes on, Ferrell, what was going on with the Buccaneers and the Jaguars and Liam Cohen over the last 36 hours? This was crazy. So Jordan Schultz reported that the Jaguars love Liam Cohen so much that he will actually be assisting Shad Khan in trying to figure out who the next GM is, taking over for Trent Baalke. Great last name, less than stellar track record in the NFL. This was a guy that we thought was going to be a head coach. Then he re-upped with the Buccaneers as the OC, but he never signed anything. And then he wasn't returning the Buccaneers calls. And then now he's the head coach with Jacksonville. This was the guy that had us nervous after Dave Canales left for Carolina. Liam Cohen said, I got this, and Baker Mayfield turns in an even better 2024 season than what he had with 2023. He left Kentucky, University of Kentucky. I did not realize this, Ferrell, for the Rams in 2022. Then he came back to the Wildcats in 2023. Then he went to Tampa in 2024. 39 years old. He is a young, creative, offensive play caller. We'll see how he is as a head coach. This is great for Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. Yeah. This is very good for Brian Thomas. It's very good for the Jaguars offense in general. I guess here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that all those offensive players should be better. They should be coached better. And they'll be put in better positions to succeed this year. What I'm not convinced on is if the Jaguars as a team is going to be better. I hope he's going to be a very good head coach, but the jury's still out. Some of these guys, Ferrell, you just don't know how they will be as a head coach until they actually have the gig.
Well, in regards to Lawrence, I think you would have to pay FFPC drafters to choose him at the draft. I think everyone has been burnt significantly, and some people will say that they're going to wait on the running back. You're not going to wait on Brian Thomas, who towards the end of the season put up numbers that would compare with any receiver in the league, and the tight end Ingram is still quite a bargain. This is what it's all about: is to invest in Lawrence and to catch some of the momentum at the quarterback position. You've got 4 quarterbacks playing this weekend, and none of them really look and play like Trevor Lawrence. We were promised Trevor Lawrence would be more of a Patrick Mahomes and move in the pocket and have some ability with his feet. We just haven't seen it. We haven't, and in the times that we've seen flashes of it, it really hasn't been to win. It hasn't meant anything. He takes off running when it's 3rd and 20 and then it's 3rd and 10. And so the upside from a fantasy standpoint will mean that the Jacksonville players who last year's ADP were firmed up, they're likely to be drafted in pretty much the same position, with perhaps the exception of Etienne. In the early drafts, at least.
Etienne's still under contract, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I didn't know what was going on with him. And then obviously Brian Thomas is the guy that can paper over a lot of problems with Jacksonville. And I'm excited to see how Liam Cohen uses him for sure. I'm also excited to talk with our guest that we're going to bring on.
You got to get him in here.
A guy who has won leagues in the KFFSC. He has won 5 main event league championships in the FFPC as well. You follow him on the X at Bill Hollywood 50. Please welcome in our good buddy, Mr. Bill Hollywood. Bill, good evening and welcome, my friend.
Hey, how are you? How you doing, Ferrell?
But it is good to see you. Can I borrow your comb? You're wearing your hair differently than the last time I saw you. You're looking good, buddy.
It's good to see you, man. It's been since Louisville at the KFFSC in 2024, which we had a blast at. How did this season turn out for you as a whole this past year of 2024 as far as your fantasy football leagues go?
You know, overall, money wise, broke out about even, maybe give or take. You know, I know $500-600, you know, and I spent that in the playoff championship. So, but overall, I would say it's injuries. You know, that's probably the thing that really derailed some of my teams that didn't make it, and the ones that stayed healthy were there. And it was a different kind of year this year than it has been in the past. I feel where the injuries happened to the really good players last year, like Puka, and one after another just kept on going down every week. And so overall,
if you had a good team, Bill, you were insured against injury, but after 5 or 6 guys, it just becomes a little bit too much. There's no way to recover.
Right.
There's just no way to recover from that. So looking forward, I have a question. Trying to figure out the mix in Detroit's backfield was one of the biggest questions that we had last year. Now it's going to become, because of Montgomery's injury, it's going to be the biggest question for 2025. How will they balance that out? It looks like it works to me. I think it will keep working. I like both players. Does Montgomery reclaim more of a role in that backfield, or does it look more like what we saw in the unfortunate early exit for Detroit for the playoffs? What are you going to do with David Montgomery next year?
I had him this year.
January, by the way, Bill, and we want to know.
Correct.
You can change your
I
mind.
had David Montgomery in pretty much every single league this year. But next year, I'm going to be leaning off Montgomery a little bit, even though I think he's still going to be a solid player. But if I'm a new offensive coordinator coming in and I want to still have that creativity that the Lions should have, I'm probably going to use Gibbs more. And so I think we all see the talent that Gibbs has. I mean, he's, if not one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best. I think that you're going to see a lot more Gibbs.
Okay.
That's my guess.
And Montgomery, though, would be a value if he dropped to where? 6, 7? 5, 6, 7?
Maybe 8.
Wow. That's wild.
7, 8. You know, I still think you're looking at maybe 25 catches by Montgomery, maybe 700 yards. But I don't think it's going to be nearly what it was in the last 2 years for Montgomery.
And you know, that makes sense because, you know what, if I'm calling plays, so much of that ball's got to get in Gibbs' hands. Nothing against Montgomery. You get in the red zone, maybe we'll use you more. But
he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, and you know he's got to he's got to fill big shoes. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that with my best player, and Gibbs is going to give me that creativity that I'm looking for. So I'm going to be playing Gibbs a little bit more next year. And
he's the ball player that got the offensive coordinator his head coaching job. That's the kind of some players get you fired, Gibbs gets you promoted. That's why I hang around with Balky. Good things started happening.
You know, but that offensive line is so good that that's going to be able to create Montgomery still to be able to give you some value. But you know, I'm probably going to lean off Montgomery more next year.
I think the thing to keep in mind, well, number one, Bill brought it up. New offensive coordinator, we don't know. Like we think we know, but we don't know. We're we're guessing here. Last year, Montgomery was the hammer in the first and the fourth quarter. Sprinkled Gibbs through all 4 quarters, heavy on Gibbs in the second and third quarters, but Montgomery was the guy in the first and the fourth quarter. He was averaging, I think, 16 touches. Was it 16 touches or I don't think he was averaging 16 fantasy points a game. I think he was averaging 16 touches a game when he was healthy. And that's the way Ben Johnson liked to deploy him. Now, what's going to happen next year? I don't know, but I think what we saw is, I think everybody saw, if you didn't know it already, Jahmyr Gibbs is special. He is a special player. Montgomery's good, but he's not Jahmyr Gibbs good. Right now in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, which shout out to Fantasy Mojo at Fantasy Mojo on the X, fantasymojo.com. Anytime we cite ADPs on this show, it's always due to fantasymojo.com. If you're playing in the FFPC, strongly urge you to get a subscription there. Highly affordable. Gibbs, guys, current ADP, 105. He is the second running back going off the board behind Saquon Barkley. And then you have to go down to the 512 to find David Montgomery. That is where he's going, running back 19, after Kenneth Walker, after Alvin Kamara, before Isaiah Pacheco, and before James Conner. That's where Montgomery's located. I think I'm with Bill. I think he probably slips a little bit more before I'm interested in him. But I think he's a guy that you can look at as a player, given how that high-powered that Lions offense should be again this year. A guy that you can trust as a top 20 running back, top 24 running back on most weeks, because that's just the well-oiled machine that they have on offense.
And ask him that Ben Johnson question, Balky, because I would phrase it differently.
Well, how would you phrase it, Ferrell? Go ahead.
I would phrase it, who's the Gibbs in Chicago?
Is he on the roster? Yeah, he may not be on the roster.
I don't, we might be looking at Javonte Williams. We might be looking at a couple different guys, but you got to look at Chicago a little bit more next year. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Let me throw this at you, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. The Chicago Bears in this draft pick 10. Ashton Genty should be there at 10. Would the Bears skip over offensive line and potentially draft the best running back here and put him in the backfield, and he becomes the Gibbs for the Bears? I'm saying, there's a non-zero chance that could happen.
I like it, Balky. You have a future in the front office. Let's move out.
I think he goes towards offensive line myself.
That's what I would do if I was the GM. I mean, I've seen it done in Green Bay for years. Big athletic people in the trenches is how you win football games. And the Bears just did not have enough of them along the offensive line this year. And they were dealing with some injuries as well. But I think you can't have the number one pick in the draft as a quarterback take 66 sacks his first year. You just can't do that. You got to fix that. You got to fix it fast.
Well, then you can be like the Buffalo Bills and draft Ray Davis in the 5th round from Kentucky. And then you've got, exactly.
One thing I was going to say, going back to Montgomery, is how you described they used him. That's the way they used him, but they had the lead in a lot of games. So they got to use Montgomery a lot in the fourth quarter. So that's kind of
it's even if Ben Johnson came back to Detroit this year, it's hard to win 15 games in back-to-back years. You know what I mean? Right. There might have just been a natural regression coming anyway. We don't know who the offensive coordinator is going to be there, Bill. Is there anybody you look at in Detroit right now where you're a little bit nervous about now that Johnson's not there? You're like, I don't know how excited I'm going to be anymore. I mean, just to bring it up, these Lions are not cheap in drafts right now, regardless of who the OC is. You still have Gibbs. We already said 105. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the 110. You have 2 Lions going in the first round on average of the Never Too Early tournament. Sam Laporta is still being drafted in the 4th round. Jamison Williams is in the 5th round. We're coming back to the whole Patriots issue from a few years ago when they had Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski, Brandon Lloyd, and Wes Welker, I think it was. And, one of these guys is going to bust. You can't have this many players drafted this early and have them all succeed. I'm looking at the ADP right now for Detroit. I count 5 players in the first 5 rounds on the same team. That's insane. And I don't know now who's it going to be, who's going to bust. I don't know, but there's got to be a little bit of trepidation there, Bill, knowing that this offense could be different this year, not only with the new OC, but maybe Jared Goff does not play as efficient as he was last year as well.
Oh, bite your tongue, Balky.
I'm just saying.
That's probably the route. That's probably the route I would go. I would say if a guy's going to probably struggle off the gate, it probably would be Goff more than probably anybody. But Goff would probably be the guy I would say would probably have, we got to just see. It's early. I don't really know who they're going to go after yet. But I would say if somebody's probably going to struggle a little bit, maybe it's Goff. Maybe it's the offensive line a little bit. But
we'll have his 5 offensive comrades drafted in the first 5 rounds, and then you can get Goff in the 16th round. Here's something.
Yeah.
Here's something that I want your input with, because no one really thought he could give it to us 2 years in a row, and that's Puka. Now, how high, based on what you saw this year, and especially the way things went for Kupp and some of the other receiving talent on the team, how high does Puka Nacua go in the draft? We're out there playing in Hollywood and Paris and Las Vegas. Is he the first wide receiver, second wide receiver to come off the board?
I got him number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Where'd you have him last year? Where'd you have him last year? 6'8", something like that.
Yeah, like 6, 7.
He's just enjoying.
I think right before the Kentucky, I think he dropped a little bit. He started dropping a little bit, and but overall, I had actually probably him in the 2nd round.
You were cleaning up down here in Kentucky, Bill. People didn't want to be anywhere near Billy Holiday.
No, I had, I'll tell you what, I had a lot of fun. If people never been to Kentucky, go do it. I mean, even last year was my rookie year, and everything was perfect. The food was fabulous. I mean, I ate so much food, but
you should be here for Super Bowl, my friend. But that
I don't
next
know
year's
if my partner's gonna go, but it's hard for me to tell. Sometimes I get some nice tickets to go to games, so I'm just hoping maybe to strike that Super Bowl ticket, which I've never been before. But yeah, I'm not sure yet on that. It's gonna be close.
Nacua is going as the 4th wide receiver in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament right now, behind Chase, Jefferson, and Lamb. He is going ahead of St. Brown and Collins, but if you want Nacua, he's at the 110. And Bill, I think you kind of alluded to this without actually saying it. That dude was playing, it's similar to Jordan. Well, it's not similar to Jordan Love, because Love was playing way above his weight at the end of the 2023 season, but he was playing as good as any quarterback in professional football. I would say Puka Nacua was playing as good as any receiver in professional football last year, and it's still fresh in our mind. And it's still fresh in our mind that Cooper Kupp, even though he was okay in that playoff loss, I mean, the 3 games before that, he was awful. And knowing that Stafford's going to be back, knowing that they have a connection, man, I love Nacua. He's got the high ceiling. He's got the high floor. He's a great first-round investment this year.
How can you not? I mean, I think I would take Puka for sure over CD. Jefferson, he's still Jefferson. So, I mean, I can understand that. I think there's a ton of wide receivers, more next year that – so I mean, I would probably put Puka in the top 3, top 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, no doubt.
I mean, for targets, for touchdowns, I mean, I don't see anything. The only thing I think you got to worry about with Puka is health.
Yeah. Well,
it seems like he's got a little bit of Mike Williams in him, where he stretches for that ball. When he gets up, it's like everybody's biting their fingernails if he's going to get up. But
I don't want to compare him to like Pacheco, but he does play the receiver position kind of with reckless abandon, doesn't he? Like he doesn't strike me as a guy that's Torrey Holt was the king of protecting his body. When he would make catches over the middle, he usually went down right away. He didn't fight for extra yards. He wasn't overexerting himself. And you know what? I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's got to be darn near close to it if he's not, because he had such a long, great career. And Nacua, that would go a long way if he just took care of his body a little bit more. I think there'd be a lot of longevity there as well. Rubio,
I mean, how
falls
such
like
a
a
big
sack of potatoes every time.
Rubio says he doesn't fall right, and that's right.
Yeah.
Especially on the sidelines, he falls funny. Sounds like a line from an old Jack Nicholson movie.
He's got to do. Tonga Vailoa did that this past offseason, where he took judo or whatever to teach himself how to fall properly. That's what Nakua needs to do.
State Farm's got those guys taking ballet. You see it in the commercials.
Yes, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson for sure.
It may not be real,
but yeah, I don't think it is. But it's still fun to think about. Nakua Ferrell is not the only first-round receiver we're talking about with Bill tonight.
All right. Well, you want me to talk about him then?
I can do it. Yeah. Well, let's just do it. Nico Collins, a guy who
we can't quit talking about the Texans. If you're going to talk about the Texans,
you already said, Ferrell, like invest in Texans this year, and Collins is a player worth investing in. But Bill, is he worth the first round squeeze? Is that the price that you want to pay for Nico Collins? Given that, again, no offensive coordinator in Houston right now. We don't know what's going to happen with Diggs. We don't know if the Texans are going to bring him back. Quite frankly, we don't know what his health status is and when he's going to be coming back off that torn ACL. Tank Dell probably going to miss the whole season or at least a large chunk of it. What are your thoughts on Nico Collins for people drafting right now?
I love him. I mean, I think you can't go wrong. I somewhere pick 11, 12 right before the turn. Yeah, I think he's worth it. I think you got to like everything that you're hearing really and seeing. And so, hey, are they going to feed him the ball next year? Heck yeah, they're going to. Can he handle it? And is he a top wide receiver in the league? Yeah, I think he's right there, number 7, 8 wide receiver overall. Is that going to be good enough to land the first round? Well, it's going to be right there at the turn. That's where I'd be interested.
When anyone beat me to Nico last year, I felt wounded. The Balky does Mr. Armani still have stats up to show us where Collins was going when we finally got to Planet Hollywood? Because
was it mid-third?
Third round?
Yeah, early mid-third.
Yeah,
probably like 3-4.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. This was prior to the Thursday night game. For who played in the Thursday night game last year? Was it Chiefs Ravens?
Baltimore was one of them.
Yeah, I think it was Baltimore Chiefs.
Yeah.
Nico Collins, wide receiver 15 at the 308.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to think of him because you can't get to 5 receivers without shouting out Nico Collins now. Yeah, I think.
And I think even next year he's going to be better.
Yeah, and we just talked about how the quarterback struggled this year, but he was great. So
when he's out, he's just got to stay out there. And what did Collins miss time with this year? Was it a soft tissue thing? Like I don't necessarily think he's had a history of that. And he's not like old, so I don't think that continues. I think it was kind of a one-off. So I don't think there's much health risk there for Collins next year as well. All right, I'm done with receivers for now, Ferrell. We can talk.
Let's talk running back then. Bucky Irving. I want to take my tip of the cap to one Eric Balkman, Bill Hollywood. He was on the Bucky Irving train. He was the first guy there. He was trying to get people to bite on him. Couldn't get anybody to bite on him early. Preseason started. Some people came in. I think, like I had appreciation for Tampa running back White. And I saw a lot of other weapons on that team. And I thought, well, maybe Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is a big surprise to me of last year. And I would want to target that player coming this year. You think Bucky Irving keeps it up? You think he's early off the boards in the FFPC?
For sure. Yeah. Last year in my notes, I said, try to get Bucky in the 12th round in every league and try not to miss out on Tyrone Tracy. And you want to know something? I missed out on Bucky on every single league.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the guy, the guy's a maniac. I think he's a second round pick. Yeah,
he's going right now, running back 9. I know Michael Kinzel just asked this. He's going right now running back 9 at the 208 in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. So mid to late second round. He's right beg your pardon. He is right after McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs. He's going right before Ashton Genty and Jonathan Taylor. So that's where you're looking at with Bucky Irving. And I'll say this, guys. What's depressing to me, I was not first in line for the Bucky Irving train, Ferrell, because if I was, I would have had him on all these KFFSC dynasty teams, and I don't, which is really frustrating.
Talking about it is one thing, Balky, and doing something about it is another.
Well, I did in redraft because, like, that's the thing. Like, I just and I think I'm done with. It's still going to factor in, but I'm putting much less emphasis on the size of these running backs. Remember, like it used to be like you had to be
220.
220, 215, like 5'10, 5'11, 6 foot. Like you needed this squat, low center of gravity, Barry Sanders style. And these light guys, these sub 200 guys, they were not going to be able to get it done. And I don't know if it's been the shift in the NFL or how offenses are, but these guys are getting it done. And sometimes they're getting it done between the tackles pretty successfully. Bucky Irving, great example. That Devon Achane, another guy I wish I would have had more of in my rookie drafts from a couple years ago. So I'm not saying like it's not a thing, but I'm definitely putting less emphasis on it going forward when I'm trying to figure out how much I want to be invested in undersized running backs, Bill. I don't think I'm shying away from it as much as I used to.
People have been making that mistake for a long time, Bob.
I mean, I'm almost leaning towards going after him, to be
there
honest.
you go.
Because,
you always zig when the other person is out. Old Miss told you that Walter Payton was too small. However, I'll tell you guys something. If you see a guy's built like Derrick Henry, go ahead and draft him. That's all.
Yeah. That moves like Derrick Henry. I've seen guys you got to have both. Like otherwise you just got like Gus Edwards or somebody like that in your hands, which is fine, but not that high.
People liked Gus back in August. They really liked Gus.
They did, yeah. Harbaugh had a lot to do with that for sure.
Really.
The rookie class, I think we're going to look back on from this past year as such a super talented one. Bowers, McConkey, Irving.
Neighbors.
And Neighbors, another one. And the guy I haven't mentioned, Ferrell, is Brian Thomas, a guy I didn't really appreciate how good his season was until I looked at the stats after the year, and I'm like, mother of God, how talented are these LSU receivers and Neighbors and Thomas to be on the offenses they were on and to put up the numbers that they did. Bill, I'm going to tell you right now, in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, I got Brian Thomas here. Wide receiver 8 is where he's going on average since the tournament started on Sunday. Wide receiver 8 at the 202. Is that too rich for your blood? Bearing in mind, Liam Cohen, pretty good offensive mind that's going to be coaching him now in Jacksonville. 202, too high, too low, just right for Brian Thomas for Bill Hollywood.
I drafted him last year. I was pretty high on Brian Thomas. That sounds a little too high for me. But you look at it, Brian Thomas, he gradually got better. And it not only was he wasn't bad, he was still getting 9 receptions early on in a lot of those games. But when it came to the last 6 games, it started becoming, double digits every single week. There's so many good wide receivers. There's Jackson Smith, the Jigba. There's Ladin Conkley. And so he's. I put him somewhere around right behind maybe David Moore, or right in front of David Moore, right in that area. Where's David Moore going?
DJ
David
Moore. DJ Moore. Oh yeah, it's like okay. David Moore is going to be way down there. Wide receiver 19 for DJ Moore at the 403. Bill,
a little high for me.
So I think that's somewhere Brian Thomas belongs.
Maybe
a little higher than that, but
a little higher than that.
Yeah, the thing is, and this is what I mentioned at the top of the show, we have to balance out what we saw last year and whether it's sustainable. And with the plays that Brian Thomas made last year, the way he was utilized, the way that Jacksonville will have to move the ball, score points, chew up yardage, I think they have to use Brian Thomas in the same way, and I think he's going to come through again. I did hear somebody compare him to, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, and somebody compared him to oh, you know what? I think it was Theo Greminger from Player Profiler said, I hope he doesn't turn into like Josh Gordon, where he has this big year and then, and I don't think he will.
I think he's a really, I mean, if somebody wanted to take him that early, I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, this guy can do it all, and we could be talking about this guy in a couple of years where he's top 3 wide receiver in the league.
And fellas, Theo's got too long of a memory. That's just all. Just Theo. Let some things go, Theo. Please.
Do you know? I heard this. Oh, you guys will appreciate this. I was listening to the Dynasty Warzone podcast. There is a tight end that they mentioned from Syracuse, Oronde Gadsden II.
Yes.
I mean, I just feel like it was a few years ago. I was drafting Oronde Gadsden at the end of my drafts as like a 7th receiver for the Dolphins. And now his kid is going to be playing tight end in the end. I mean, just unbelievable. Unbelievable how time is a flat circle, as Russ Cole would say, as I'm wearing my Lone Star hat tonight. Let's ask Bill the question. I want to see how his answer matches up with what I'm looking at with the ADP here, Ferrell.
Okay. Oh, is my question?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah, we're
all over the board tonight.
I got an 11 o'clock meeting coming up, Balky, and I just got to get this in.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's go. Look, you're one of the best guys in the business, Billy Hollywood. This is why everybody's tuned in and everybody stayed with us to the end of the show. You came down here to Kentucky and you walked around, you took assessment, and I can't imagine what you're going to do to these guys when you get down here next year for all 3 days, Billy Hollywood. We need you in the building for all 3 days. And right now, I want to know your top 5 guys. That's what I want to know. I don't care about position. I want your top 5 players. You're going to decide if you're drafting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can do that in Kentucky by determining your draft spot. So let me know who you want at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I'd probably go.
It's a tough one.
I'd probably go.
Don't say Christian McCaffrey. Nobody will buy into that.
I would probably go Chase.
Yep.
Probably go Puka.
Okay.
Then I'd probably go Barkley.
Yep.
Then I'd probably go Gibbs.
Got you.
And then I'd probably go Bowers.
I love it.
Bowers.
Now that would be Bowers more in the main event over the Kentucky.
Yeah, so if we're in Las Vegas, Bowers moves in front of Gibbs, Barkley, or does he stay 5?
I would put Bowers at 5.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a great list of players, and I would have to say I agree.
Now I got a question for Ferrell.
Go ahead.
Ricky White. What do you think about him do you think he's going to prosper in the NFL next year?
I don't really know. Sometimes we got to say we're not ready to answer that question. And I don't really know.
Okay.
I haven't got enough of that yet. And
I watched a couple games this year and open all the time. Never,
Bill, who's the guy? I can't remember what show it was, but you were hanging out in the YouTube chat and you mentioned a rookie wide receiver and it was somebody out west.
Oh, Nick Nash.
Yeah. Why do you like Nick Nash?
There's just, there's times where I'm just watching a game and I just always look for the best player on the field.
Mm-hmm. And that's all. When you have a player like Nick Nash playing at San Jose State, he'll be the best player on the field. And that's one. And man, I would like to get a consensus of the scouts, but yeah, it's a good player.
If he late in the draft, if you're looking for like a team like New England, I think they could boost up and definitely a guy like Nick Nash would really help out that wide receiving core, and maybe even Washington. I think they're kind of wide receiver weak. Where a guy like Nick Nash, I think when I look at him, he's more like a guy like Tyler Lockett to me, and so he can pretty much pick up the game right away. I think, and I think he's a guy where if you're looking a little bit later in rounds, Nick Nash would be a guy I would be interested in.
He'll be the darling of all dynasty drafts in the 5th, 6th, 7th round.
Yeah.
6'3", 195 pounds, the first and only unanimous All-American in San Jose State history. I did not realize that. 104 catches, almost 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. Nick Nash. I will put him on my list. And when he goes Puka Nakua in 2025, I will happily buy Bill Hollywood all the beer that he can drink, because it will all be attributed. I remember it stuck in my mind when you mentioned that, and I had never, I don't know if I'd never heard of him or I just didn't know about him, and then I researched him. That I'm like, God, this guy is really good. And then I totally forgot about it till now.
I was hoping he played in the bowl game, but he didn't play in the bowl game. I would have liked to see him there because I got to watch that on TV. But yeah, I watched him. I can't remember who it was against, and he just looked pretty dominant. And then they started talking that this guy's going to be an NFL in the NFL, and I started looking at more of his tape, and he was another guy like Ricky that was just always open. He had a good first step, kind of like maybe Keenan Allen, and he was more like, I thought, like Tyler Lockett, that just found a way. And so,
I see a lot of Michael Pittman in him, and everybody knows everybody knows I'm Michael Pittman crazy.
Yes, you are. I know this is collegiate stats, but I want to bring this up, guys. In a 6-day span, Nick Nash did this in 6 days. Kennesaw State, 17 catches, 225 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 6 days later, Washington State, 16 catches, 152 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's insane. I mean, like, to do that in the span of 6 days is unbelievable. I'm officially on this guy in the 4th round, or maybe higher, depending upon how his draft capital goes too. Ferrell, we are up against it. Let's ask Bill Hollywood one final question here.
Bill Hollywood, we got to get out of here. Just give me, we picked your brain about a lot of great guys, and the Nick Nash thing is fantastic. Who do you think is going to be slept on in the 2025 drafting season? And who is somebody that right now that you're staying away from? So give us a guy that you'll be in on, and most people won't be. Give us a guy that you're not going to be in business with.
Probably Travis Etienne.
We talked about that earlier. I agree.
Yep. His legs he just didn't look like he had the speed. His legs didn't look like they were there. The offensive line the whole entire thing was a mess. And so he's just going to be a guy, hopefully, that I'm probably not going to be interested in next year. And I don't think a lot of other people might not be either, but he might be a flashy name and people might say, oh, give me him. But I don't think I'm going to be interested in.
You got another Nick Nash in your opposite back pocket?
Offhand, I look at that. I don't know if he's maybe a top guy, but that Ricky White, when I watched
you're
him.
In on him. I'm going to, we're all going to be digging in. Everybody on the show is going to be digging into who, what, and where for Ricky White. And you've got fans, Bill Hollywood, old Tom Smith and Mike Quinzel, and these guys, they're all happy that we got to see you tonight. And I for sure am too.
It's great. Great to see you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Let me do this. I'll throw this from Michael Quinzel on the screen. He wants to know what you think of Luther Burden. I remember Luther Burden last year being talked about as a potential high draft pick. Then he came back to Missouri for another season. But what do you think about him this year? I'm looking at a lot of dynasty mocks and a lot of dynasty rankings. He seems to be the second wide receiver on most people's boards, Bill. Certainly the best player on the field for a lot of the games he played over the course of his career as well.
I don't know much about him. I watched more college after the season's over. So
I think he's an NFL legacy player too, guys. I think.
Is he really?
Yeah. I think some family members have played in the league. If not the father or the uncle.
Where's he going to be drafted in Dynasty?
Early.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, we'll see what the draft capital is on these guys, but I think if you are drafting like, let's say you were drafting your rookie draft before the NFL draft, I think as it stands right now, he's a slam dunk top 5 pick. He might even be top 3. Again, going by a lot of what I'm seeing, that would be my best guess right now. Okay, let's plug you one more time, Bill. Bill Hollywood 50 on the X. I know you don't utilize it a whole lot, but you are now officially our go-to guy for West Coast rookie receivers, because we got a lot of Nick Nash in tonight. We got a lot of Ricky White in tonight. I don't know if you're staying up late and taking in all this West Coast action on Saturday nights, but it certainly might pay off for you this year. It paid off for you last year, a big season in the FFPC and the KFFSC. Bill, be good. Can't wait to see you in person, dude. Enjoy the games on Sunday, and we'll talk with you again real soon.
Cheers. See you soon.
You got it.
Thank
Bill
you,
Hollywood,
Bill.
ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Bill. Joining us tonight, the 5-time FFPC main event champion and multi-league champion in the KFFSC as well. Bill Hollywood, awesome guy. Great to hang out with him. You want to do rapid fire emails here, Ferrell? Pound them out.
Buddy, I think we should save them until next week because it's
Okay.
11 o'clock and we want to perfectly end, right?
Okay, we will end for sure. KFFSC is where to go, kffsc.com. Check out everything going on there, and sign up for those leagues ASAP before they
We
fill.
got 6 spots, Balky, left in the Sweet 16,
Sweet
the online
16.
version on February 18th.
Okay, so and I'm in that draft too. So if you want to draft
Yeah.
against me, sign
Who
up now,
wouldn't want to?
kffsc.com.
I want
Exactly.
to beat you to Nick Nash. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I know who I'm taking late in that draft for sure. Ferrell, be good. Enjoy the games on Sunday, my friend, and we will talk with you again real soon.
Thank you, brother.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Follow him on the X at jferrellelliott, at KFFSC official, and of course, KFFSC.com. I want to thank Bill Hollywood, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, bringing you a show on the first non-football weekend since, August. It's going to be crazy, but we'll have plenty to talk about with the new coaching changes and obviously more dynasty stuff and never too early stuff as well. In case you missed last night's high stakes fantasy football show on the Better Sports Network, it was myself and Yahoo Sports, Scott Pianowski chopping it up for 2 hours. Scott always brings it. It was a fantastic show. Got a lot of great feedback on it last night. Go back and watch it on the FFPC or Better Sports Network socials. We'll be back this coming Thursday, and I'm excited about this episode too. Jared Smola from Draft Sharks has not been on a lot of Draft Sharks podcasts lately. Part of the reason is because he is burning the midnight oil, cranking out the Draft Sharks rankings for 2025, and they should be done right before we broadcast that night. So that will be Jared's return to podcasting, and we'll get our first look at the Draft Sharks award-winning rankings too. So make sure you're checking that out, 7 o'clock this Thursday on the Better Sports Network, all the FFPC socials as well. Play the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments right now at myffpc.com. They are going to run through the NFL draft and conclude on April 24th. 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clock, $40,000 and $10,000 grand prizes. You can enter for as little as $35 and $200 in those two competitions right now at myffpc.com. Plenty of Dynasty Orphans out there for you as well. Check them out, myffpc.com. Entry fees range from $77 all the way up to $5,000. Many teams have already been discounted as well. So check that out, myffpc.com. 1,800 plus leagues, 15 years. Not a single dynasty league has ever folded in the FFPC. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Thank you so much for listening, downloading, streaming, watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday, 7 o'clock with Jared Smola from Draft Sharks. I'm Eric Balkman for Bill Hollywood, for Ferrell Elliott, saying good night. Your weekend officially starts now. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
yourself.
Hey, one other thing, and I should have been promoting this more, but be paying attention, and you've probably already seen it on our X posts. But we have something big coming coming up on February 5th. Beg your pardon, February 2nd, which we are only 9 days away from that. It is something we have never done before in the FFPC, something we're very excited about, and something we will be announcing on the 2nd, which I believe could be in the form of a special high stakes fantasy football hour with maybe a special guest on that show. We're still kind of figuring out the process of what we're going to do, but February 2nd, big announcement coming from the FFPC. Just putting it out there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good year. But we got to get this year over with first. And I can't wait to watch the games on Sunday. I hope you all enjoy them. Thanks for watching the HSFF Hour. Back at you later.